On my 60th birthday, I baked my own lemon cake and waited for a quiet day with the man I'd loved for 35 years. The doorbell rang. I opened it with a smile, expecting flowers or neighbors. Instead, my husband stood there with another woman and two grown children who had his eyes. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just said, "Come in, the tea is ready," and reached for the wooden box I'd hidden for weeks. On my birthday, he brought home the family he hid for 30 years. I smiled and handed him the box. Narration script first. Person calm, heartfelt. I never thought my 60th birthday would be the day everything changed. I woke up that morning feeling light, the way you do when the sun is soft and the house smells of coffee. I had been looking forward to this day for months. Robert promised it would be special, just the two of us, maybe a quiet dinner, a slice of the lemon cake I love. Nothing big. I stopped wanting big celebrations a long time ago. I stood in the kitchen in my old blue robe, humming, arranging the roses he brought home the night before. 60 roses, one for every year. He smiled when he gave them to me, kissed my forehead the way he has done for 35 years. I believed that kiss. I still do in some small corner of my heart. The doorbell rang at 11 o'clock. I thought it was the neighbor, Mrs. Chen, dropping off her famous pineapple tarts. She does that every birthday. I wiped my hands on the dish towel and walked to the door with a smile already on my face. 3 people stood on the porch, a woman about my age, thin, with kind, tired eyes, a young man in his late 20s, tall like Robert, and a girl, maybe 22, holding a small gift wrapped in gold paper. They looked nervous. The woman kept smoothing her skirt. I opened the door wider. "Can I help you?" The woman looked past me, into the house. "Is Robert home?" That was the first little crack in the morning. Strangers don't usually call my husband Robert. They call him Mr. Tan or Uncle Robert. Only people who really know him say Robert. I turned around. He was already in the hallway, very still, holding the car keys he had just picked up. His face was pale. I had not seen him that pale since his mother passed, Robert. I said softly, "Who are these people?" He swallowed once, twice, then he stepped forward and opened the door all the way. "Mei Ling," he said, using my name the way he does when he is serious. This is Susan." "And the children?" "Daniel and Grace, children." He said children. I looked at the young man and the girl again. Daniel had Robert's nose. Grace had his quiet mouth. I felt the floor tilt under my feet, but I didn't fall. Something inside me went very calm instead. Susan spoke first. "We're sorry to come without calling." "Robert said today was a good day." "A good day," I smiled. I don't know how, but I smiled. "Please," I heard myself say, "come in. Take off your shoes if you like." I just made tea. They stepped inside like they were walking on glass. I led them to the living room, the one we only use for Chinese New Year and funerals. I arranged cushions. I poured tea. My hands did not shake, not once. Robert sat on the edge of the sofa, elbows on his knees, staring at the carpet. I sat in my usual armchair, the one with the faded roses, and folded my hands in my lap. Susan started talking. She spoke softly, the way you speak when you're afraid of breaking something. She told me they lived 2 hours away in a small house near the coast, that Robert visited every other weekend for 30 years, that he paid for Daniel's university and Grace's piano lessons, that he was there the day Grace was born and the night Daniel had appendicitis. Every word was gentle. But every gentle words can cut the deepest. I listened. I nodded. I even said, "Grace plays piano." "That's lovely," when she told me. Inside, I was counting years. 30 years ago, Robert and I had just bought this house. We painted the walls yellow together. We planted the mango tree in the backyard that still gives fruit every summer. 30 years ago, I thought we were building a life. Grace put the gold gift on the coffee table. "Happy birthday, Auntie," she said. Her voice shook. "Auntie, not Ma, not Mummy, Auntie." I looked at the gift and felt something inside me settle, like dust after a bomb. I stood up slowly. "Excuse me one moment." I walked to the bedroom Robert and I shared for 35 years. I opened the lowest drawer, the one with the good linen. Inside was a wooden box I bought last month. Plain teak, no carving. I had planned to put our old photos inside. For our anniversary next year, I carried the box back to the living room. Robert finally looked up. His eyes were red. I placed the box in his hands. "Open it," I said. He opened it with fingers that Didn't want to work properly. Inside were the house keys, my wedding ring, and the divorce papers I had signed 2 weeks ago when the private investigator sent me the photographs. I had known for 14 days, 14 mornings of waking up beside him and pretending to sleep, 14 nights of cooking his favorite black pepper crab and watching him eat like nothing was wrong. I smiled again. The same smile I used when I opened the door. I was going to give you this next month, I said, but today feels right. Silence filled the room like warm water. Susan started to cry quietly. Daniel stared at the floor. Grace reached for her mother's hand. Robert held the box and could not speak. I stood up. The guest room is made up. You can stay as long as you need. The mango tree is fruiting early this year. Grace, you'll like the mangoes. Then I walked to the kitchen, put the kettle on again, and started slicing the lemon cake I baked at dawn. That was how my 60th birthday began. The rest of day passed like a dream you don't want to wake from because waking hurts more. They stayed for lunch. I served honey chicken and fried greens the way Robert likes them. We sat around the tea table we carried home together the first year we were married. Daniel told me about his job at the bank. Grace showed me videos on her phone of her playing Moonlight Sonata. Susan asked about my roses and listened like she really cared. Robert didn't eat much. After lunch, I brought out the birthday cards our nieces and nephews sent. I read them aloud the way I always do. When I came to the card from our goddaughter that said to the best auntie and uncle in the world, and my voice only cracked once. In the afternoon, the rain came. Soft, steady rain that made the mango leaves shine. We sat on the porch and watched it fall. Nobody spoke for a long time. Then Susan said very quietly, I never asked him to leave you. I believed her. Grace asked if she could pick some mangoes. I gave her the long pole with the basket on the end. She laughed when the first mango dropped perfectly inside. The sound of her laugh floated over the garden like birds coming home. Robert stood beside me. Hands in his pockets. I'm sorry, May, he whispered. I know. I said, night came early because of the rain. I made extra rice and heated the leftover chicken. We ate again, the 5 of us, like a family that wasn't broken yet. After dinner, I brought out the lemon cake. 60 candles would have been too many, so I put 6 and 1 in the middle for luck. They sang happy birthday, 5 voices. One song, I closed my eyes and made the same wish I make every year. Let the people I love be happy. Then I blew out the candles in one breath. Later, when the house was quiet, I sat in my armchair. With a cup of chamomile, Robert came and knelt in front of me the way he did when he proposed in 1989. I don't know how to fix this, he said. You don't. I answered, some things stay broken. We just learned to live around the cracks, he cried then. Big silent tears that fell on my knees. I stroked his hair the way I did when we were young and his father died. I let him cry until there was nothing left. Susan and the children slept in the guest rooms. I gave them fresh towels and my softest blankets. Grace hugged me good night. She smelled like rain and mangoes. I slept in the small room at the back, the one we always said would be for sewing. The next morning, I woke early the way I always do. I made coffee and sat on the porch watching the sun come up behind the mango tree. Robert joined me with his own cup. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally he said, What happens now? I thought about it carefully. Now, I said, you help Daniel fix the gate that's been creaking for 2 years. You teach Grace how to make kaya the way your mother did. You take Susan to the night market she always wanted to see. And you come home every night to this house until we all figure out what home means from now on. He looked at me with wonder, like he was seeing me for the first time in years. You're not leaving? He asked. I shook my head. This is my house. I planted every rose. I know where every floorboard squeaks. I'm not going anywhere. Then I added softer, but some nights I will sleep in the sewing room, some nights you will. We'll take turns carrying the weight. He nodded slowly. Susan came out then, wrapped in my old green cardigan. She sat on the step below us and rested her head against my knee the way a child does. I put my hand on her hair. Behind us, Daniel and Grace were laughing in the kitchen over burnt toast. That was the beginning of the new life none of us planned. The weeks that followed were strange and gentle all at once. I learned Susan loves to garden. We spent mornings kneeling side by side pulling weeds, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about the years she waited for Robert to choose. I told her about the years I pretended not to see. We never raised our voices. There was no point. Daniel fixed more than the gate. He fixed the leaking tap in the bathroom and the loose handle on the cupboard. Every time he tightened a screw, he looked at me like he was asking permission to belong. I always smiled and said thank you. Grace practiced piano in the living room every afternoon. Sometimes she played the pieces she learned for competitions. Sometimes she played the old Chinese songs I hummed while cooking. The house filled with music again. Robert moved into the sewing room permanently. I kept our bedroom. Some nights he brought me tea and sat on the edge of the bed until I fell asleep. Some nights I brought him tea. We never touched the divorce papers again. They stayed in the teak box on the highest shelf, like a letter we decided not to send. One Sunday, I took Susan to the temple I have gone to for 40 years. We lit incense together. I prayed for peace. She prayed for forgiveness. When we opened our eyes, we looked at each other and knew we had both received what we asked for. Months passed. The mango season ended, then came again. Grace got accepted into music school in the city. Daniel started bringing his girlfriend to Sunday lunch, a quiet girl who loves books. Susan's hair turned a softer gray, and she smiled more often. One evening, Robert found me in the garden trimming the roses. He stood behind me and put his arms around my waist the way he used to when we were young. "I don't deserve you," he said against my hair. "No," I answered, "you don't. But love was never about what we deserve. It's about what we choose every morning when we wake up." He held me tighter. That night, for the first time in a year, he slept in our bedroom. We lay side by side, not touching, just listening to each other breathe. It was enough. People ask me sometimes if I forgave him. I tell them forgiveness isn't a single moment. It's 1,000 small choices, choosing to pour tea for 5 cups instead of 2, choosing to smile when Grace calls me Auntie Mei, choosing to plant new roses where the old ones died. Some days are harder. Some nights I still take my pillow to the sewing room and cry into it so no one hears, but most mornings I wake up to the sound of piano, the smell of coffee, and voices in my kitchen that belong to people I have learned to love in a different way. The teak box is still on the shelf. Maybe one day we will burn the papers inside. Maybe we will leave them there forever as a reminder. Either way, the house is full again, and on quiet evenings when the sun sets behind the mango tree, I sit on the porch with Susan beside me and Grace playing something soft inside, and I think, this is not the life I planned, but it is the life I have, and somehow, by the grace of all the small kindnesses we keep choosing, it is still beautiful. If you are listening to this and your heart has been broken open by someone you love, please remember broken things can still hold water, cracked cups can still carry tea, and a heart with scars can still love bigger than it ever did before. Just take it one morning at a time, pour the tea, smile when you can, cry when you must, and keep choosing kindness even when it hurts, because in the end, love is not the absence of pain, it is the presence of grace in the middle of it. Thank you for listening to my story. I wish you peace in yours.